Hello, everybody. Welcome to class. This is kind of boring. I need like an intro or something. I'll be right back. Mr. Johnson teaches narrative fiction. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Narrative Fiction with Mr. Johnson. I don't know why I have these on. I don't really need them. It's because I was watching cartoons earlier. So I'm out today, obviously. And instead of trying to make the substitute teach you everything, I thought I would just try and teach you everything over the internet. So I'm not really here. You don't have to chat with me. This is not live. But yeah, okay, so anyway, I'm going to teach you about writing narrative fiction. First, let's talk about what narrative fiction is. I'm sure you already know, but just in case you don't, let's talk about it. So narrative means it's telling a story. A story has a beginning, a middle, and end. A story has characters. A story has a structure. It goes from one point to another point to another point in a logical way. Most of the time, narrative has some sort of purpose behind it. The fiction part of it, I'm sure you know, is that it's not real. It's fantasy. It's something that couldn't happen, or in some cases, like realistic fiction, it's something that could happen but hasn't, or historical fiction, it's tied into something that has already happened, but the story is still not real. So that is what narrative fiction is. Today we're just going to do some brainstorming on narrative fiction. So I'm gonna work with you in a couple of ways to do some brainstorming for what you want to write about. At some points I'm going to ask you to stop the video. I'm going to ask you to take 5 minutes of time to think. And I really want you to take 5 minutes of time to think. If that means you need to start a timer on your Chromebook, that's fine. If you have a watch and want to start a timer on your watch, that's fine. Something that preferably is not going to bother people. I just lost my train of thought, just like in real class. So yeah, you'll need to take time when I ask you to take time to make sure things get done correctly. In other words, I don't want you to just rush through this video and be like, sweet, I'm done. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is for you to actually truly get something from it. So without further ado, let's get started. In your composition book, I asked you to make 3 lists, or 3 sections for a list. One of them is characters, and then you should have made some spaces to write. Another one is settings, and then you should have made some spaces to write. And another one is steel, and then you should have made some spaces to write. So in each one of those, we're going to do something specific. And let's just start with characters. The first part of any good narrative is brainstorming. Most people hate brainstorming. Why? Because you have to think. Brainstorming is imperative, though. Any author will tell you that without brainstorming, you're not going to be able to write adequately. I had to brainstorm just to do this video. It's not fictional narrative, but it is narrative in the sense that I'm telling you a story. It's just realistically a story. So brainstorming is a must. I'm going to show you a way to brainstorm that maybe you've never thought of before, about how to brainstorm for a narrative fiction. Now, you may have, because Miss Berryhill's a great writing teacher, and she may have already covered all this stuff, but I'm going to cover it again. So we'll start with characters, because that should be first on your list. It's really hard not to look at my face and look at the camera. So if you see me staring at myself, just ignore it. We're going to start with characters, and in your composition book, I'm going to write, this pen doesn't write. I'm going to write the same thing that you're supposed to have, although I'm probably going to write it much bigger. If you find that you need more space, feel free to flip to the next page and do this on the next space. And so what I want you to do is not what I have actually done. Stand by. What I want you to do is I want you to take your piece of paper, your composition book, and I want you to, where you've written characters, I want you to just stop and think for a little bit. And I want you to think of some types of characters that you would want to write a story about. And those characters should be things that the story wouldn't be about them. For instance, my first character I'm going to write down is a vampire. Now, why a vampire? Well, because vampires aren't real, and they are fantastic creatures. Not fantastic in the good way, I guess, but just fantastical. They're not realistic. They're not something that could ever really happen. I'm also going to write, there's a vampire. Will that focus? No, probably not, because it's way back here. It says vampire, though. I'm also going to write a rock climber. Why? Well, I actually like rock climbing, and I know some stuff about it. I've done it before. And I could write a fictional story about a rock climber. So I'm going to write a rock climber. I wrote a rock climbing for some reason because it's hard to write and think at the same time. So let me fix that. Okay. Next, I'm going to think of another character. A horse groomer. Why? Well, you'll find out later. You know what a horse groomer is, right? It's like somebody that brushes horses, like braids their hair and stuff, I guess. I don't know. You'll see. Because that's not real, but still, that's something that's real, but still I can make something not real about it. I'm going to write a talking dog. I know talking dogs are real. I'm just kidding. Obviously, talking dogs are not real. And so that would be something. And I want you to take 5 minutes and think this through. Now, look, I didn't take 5 minutes, but I did when I planned this whole thing out. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to pause it, and I want you to think, and I want you to make a list. 10, 15 characters, just random characters, things that you could write about. And don't get real deep into their story or their idea. Just a character, and write them down. Like I've written a vampire, a rock climber, a horse groomer, and a talking dog. You do the same. 10 or 15 things. Just knock them out in 5 minutes. And you know what? You're going to get done in 2 minutes. And you're going to be like, I'm done. But you sit there and you keep thinking about characters until you've got 10, 15. And then if you've still got a few minutes left while you're doing that, just sit there and think. Try to come up with something else. As fantastic as you want, as mundane or as simple as you want. And I want you to pause it right now for 5 minutes. And I'm going to wait here for 5 minutes until you get done. I'm not really just waiting for 5 minutes. Pause the video and do what I said. Go. Hey, you're back. All right, good job. Hopefully you got 10, 15 characters on the page there. And we're going to move on to the next thing, which is settings. And for some reason, I was doodling earlier on this page and started to write settings in the wrong way. And so I've got to do another page. So hang on, here we go. All right, settings. What is a setting? Who can tell me? Who can tell me? Yes, you sitting in front of the monitor. I'm just kidding. Settings are where the story takes place. Where does the story take place? Now, why would you think of a setting without having a character already picked out? Well, thinking of a setting can help you to already come up with an idea about what you want to tell a story about. Giving a setting can help lead you to characters later. Or, since we've already made a list, having a setting can help you go, ooh, this character would fit really well into this setting. Or the setting and the character together would be very adventurous. Or the setting and the character would be hilarious. Any of those ideas that pop into your brain because of those two choices will make your story that much more powerful. So we're going to think of some settings. Now, Again, just like characters, the settings can be truly fantastic and crazy, like a spaceship. One of these days, I'll opt for some like super overlays and I'll write something and it'll just appear on the screen. But that is not this day. A spaceship would be one of the options. What else? A pirate ship. Ooh, I love it. I love pirates. I don't know why. I'm a super rule follower, but for some reason I like pirates. The next thing could be just the beach. How about New York City? I've been to New York City several times, so I've got a pretty good idea. You want things that you know something about, really, because that'll help you to write with more detailed ideas and nuances. And now you've got some settings. Well, I mean, I've got some settings. But I want you to do the same thing. The settings don't have to be where the story takes place forever, but it could be, and it probably should be, just to make it easier to write about. The more settings you have, the more story that you're going to have, which makes it longer. It takes a longer time to write. We don't want to have like 8 settings that we are going to use in our story, because then you're going to have to write a lot. So if you can make them more specific, that's fine, but don't get real deep into like the idea behind it. Just come up with as many settings as you can. Again, I want you to take 5 literal minutes. 5 minutes. Set your watch, look at the clock, look at your clock on your Chromebook. Don't cheat it. Take 5 literal minutes to brainstorm settings. If you come up with 10 or 15, you are sitting pretty. If you come up with 2 or 3, you're probably going to need to go back and keep thinking. Don't cheat yourself. 5 minutes. 10, 15 settings. Ready? Hit pause. It's really hard to hold still with your hand in the air. Let me try like this. No, still can't do it. Hit pause. Go. Hey, you're back. And now it's time for my favorite one. And I messed up my writing thing because I had to write this intro thing. So I'm actually just going to use the upside down part of characters. And you may be wondering, what's Steel all about? Well, you know, I told you I like pirates. No, I like pirates. That pen has died. You're going to show your parents this video, and they're going to be like, what is wrong with your teacher? Just tell them I'm trying to entertain my students. Steal. What does steal mean? Every good writer will tell you the same thing. They like writing because someone else wrote something that spurned their... No, not spurned. Hang on. That's not the word I want. Let's see. What's the word? Don't you hate it when you're thinking about something and you can't think of the word? Imagine Dragons. That's not what I want. Radioactive. Please don't demonetize me. Okay, I have no idea what I'm trying to think of. Every writer read a story or has heard a story that lit a fire in their imagination. For me, that story was things like The Hobbit or The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis or Redwall, books that you actually are reading right now. The Half-Sword Will Travel. All of those stories, they changed something in my mind. They made me think about things I never thought before. And every good author, every good writer will tell you the same thing. And they'll tell you that you should use that to your advantage. Steal ideas from other people. Now, let me give a disclaimer here. I don't want you to copy someone else's work. I don't expect you to retell Odo and Eleanor's story of finding these enchanted swords and they go on a quest to defeat the dragon and yada, yada, yada. That's not what I mean. What I do mean is that if your story had enchanted swords in it, that's not a bad idea. As a matter of fact, that's a great idea, and I'm going to write it down. Because enchanted swords, is this going to be backwards? I hope not. We'll find out soon. Enchanted swords could be part of your story. They could be a type of character in your story. They don't have to be like Biter and Runnel, but they could be in your story. A magic ring that does something when you put it on, like in The Hobbit, it makes him invisible. A magic ring could be part of my story. Let's see, what else? A talking mouse that becomes a hero could be in my story. Talking mouse hero. So what I want you to do next is I want you to take 5 minutes. And I just want you to write down, it might be 2-3 words for each of the ideas, but I want you to think about other books you've read. And get this, shows that you've watched or movies that you've watched. Or get this, video games that you've played that have some sort of lore to them, some sort of story to them. And these things that have sparked your imagination. Sparked. How come I couldn't think of the word sparked earlier? I said spurned. That's totally not it. I want you to think of stories that spark to your imagination. They light this fire in your mind and make you think about it, even when you're not reading it, even when you're not playing it or watching it. What's a story that you've read that excites you? Pick out the thing that excites you and write that down under steel. Why won't you light up? Write that down under steel. Talking swords, magic rings, talking mouse heroes. What have you encountered in your lifetime, story-wise, that has excited you as a reader? That's what I want you to write down now. 5 minutes, take as much time. Think about as many as you can. You might not get 10 or 15 of these. You might just get 6 to 10 of these. Just think about stories that you have that have sparked your imagination. Okay? 5 minutes. I'll wait. Go. Oh, I'm still recording. Okay, you're back. All right. Now guess what? You've brainstormed. And you've brainstormed for 15 minutes. That's pretty amazing. You've done already the hardest part of writing a narrative fiction. Now, here's the next kind of crazy thing I'm going to tell you to do. I want you to turn to the next page. And I want you to just make a new spot, and you can. I don't really care what you name it. Just brainstorm would probably be the best. But I want you to go back and I want you to look at those 3 lists you made. And I want you to think about something that maybe you didn't think about. But if you look at the 2 lists specifically, characters and setting, and you might think about, hey, I have a vampire and I have a pirate ship. That might make an interesting story about a vampire that's hiding away on a pirate ship. How does he survive? He has to hide that he's a vampire, but he also has to drink blood to survive. I forgot to put down, for some reason, characters, under Steel, my unicorn story. The Last Unicorn was a great movie I saw as a kid. And see, I was going to put horse groomer and unicorn. Maybe a horse groomer finds a unicorn to groom. Maybe my talking dog is on the beach. So you've got some ideas here that you can actually combine to come up with some ideas of something to write. And so now for these last 5 minutes, what I want you to do is I want you to think about what things you could put together and write a story about. Now, this may not be what you end up writing about, but I want you to think about what you could write about in this way. So, for instance, you might write down a vampire on a pirate ship. How does he survive? A horse groomer that ends up having to groom a unicorn. What kind of hilarious things will happen? A talking dog on the beach. What will he discover? And why will anyone care? So those types of things, make a sentence out of 2 of the 3 things that you wrote down, and make 5 or 6 of them, as many as you can, but 5 or 6 will probably be plenty, because that would be 1 a minute. So again, I want you to pause the video for 5 minutes and try to combine 2 things from your 3 lists. Three lists. Ready? Go. And we're back. Great. You know what you've done? The beginnings of writing a fictional narrative. It's not hard. It takes time, takes brain power, but it's not hard. You've already done the hardest part, which is figuring out what in the world am I going to write about. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. We're going to have to do some prompt writing later on. It's nowhere near as fun, but that's how the Tennessee Department of Education tests you. Is they'll say, here's a story, read it, and then they'll say, rewrite the story from a different perspective or whatever. But hopefully me teaching you these parts will help with that later on, even though we're not going to do exactly what they want to do. All right, I'm going to leave you here. Go and I think, hold on, I'm going to let you behind the scenes. Let me read my plan real quick. It should be around 10 o'clock-ish right now. If you've gotten done with this early and it's not 10 o'clock yet, pick one of the things on the board up front. You'll see them there if you look right over there, or maybe it's this way to you, but wherever it is, it's on the board. It says things to do when I'm done, something like that. You can do that. And if it is 10 o'clock, then just move on to the next thing, which will probably be called Long March to Tennessee. All right. Hey, be good out there. Peace out.